There you go. Good morning, everybody. It is now 0930 and about time to begin. Anyhow, this morning we have David Ragan, who will be talking about the culture activities, and Cheryl Knupp, who will be talking about HR. And without further ado, I give it over to David. No, to Michelle. Okay. Do you want to use my mic or his? I'm going to turn mine off then.
Check. There we go. Okay. There's one full row. That's impressive. That's very diverse back there, I can see. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming to How It Works Part 2. This is class number 4, all on culture and the changing face of HR. So I'm going to tee it up a little bit before I turn it over to David and Cheryl. But you'll recall that when I did this in part 1, I talked about our 4 initiatives here at the Beatitudes campus and what our strategic plan looks like. And one of those pillars of strategy is culture. And there's a lot of work going on and a lot of conversations and a lot of development in this space here in life plan communities across the nation. And that's because there is a changing face of workforce. And you've heard me say before, prior to the pandemic, a lot of conversations was focused on resident, resident, resident. And it should be. Coming out of the pandemic, and because of how workforce kind of changed and how they felt a connection to their work, it's now kind of 50-50. So from a management and a strategy standpoint, we need to equally focus on our workforce as we do your living arrangements here too. So today I've asked the 2 of them who work very closely together to just talk about their work and the work that we're doing here at the campus for the workforce to create a culture of belonging that will help drive retention. Because we know that you become very close to the team members who serve you day in and day out. And we want them to feel that connection too. And so that's what today's about. We're gonna try to keep the presentation to about 45 minutes, maybe. David said maybe, because we want to have some time for Q&A as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Culture Officer, David Ragan.
That was really nice. Every time you get the mic, I'm afraid you're going to get me back for something. So, yeah, I know you do. All right, so culture and the changing face. Obviously, I'm David Ragan. I am excited to be able to share with you a little bit. I was able to hear some of the questions that I'll share with you that was asked for me to respond to as we look at the Chief Culture Officer role. I'll just say that for me, it's a very natural position. I feel like that whatever I've been doing, whether I was serving Shadow Rock United Church of Christ in Moon Valley or any of the churches, or working for the United Church of Christ, whatever along my life's journey, has always been trying to create a culture that's accepting, inclusive, and loving and embracing, whether it was a church impacting the larger community and creating a valley for us to live in that exhibits those behaviors. And I love the fact we can try to do that here. So here's what I was asked to discuss. I will probably branch out beyond it a little bit, but they asked me to discuss the role of the Chief Culture Officer of the campus. Why is the role important? What are the major functions? Why do we have such a position? And how does it benefit the campus? Intimidating questions as I have to justify myself before my boss. One of the great books of all time was written by Peter Drucker. As to whether or not he said this, it is argued that maybe he did not. Nonetheless, he wrote a whole book around it, and it says this one phrase: culture eats strategy for breakfast. How many of you have ever read his book? Yeah, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I'm going to work off that a little bit and try to explain it. But I want to first talk about what is culture. Culture is a shared set of workplace or community in our case, beliefs, values, attitudes, standards, purposes, and behaviors. It reflects both the written and unwritten, probably even more important, rules that people in an organization or community follow. For the company, culture is the sum of all that team members think, say, and do as they work together. Now that's especially important because we maintain that we can talk about culture, and I'll show you. We can talk about culture all day long. We can talk about what our mission, vision, and values are. But what the truth of the culture comes is when someone asks in the break room what the culture is like here. That's the culture, whatever that individual says. So culture does not live in the walls of our buildings, all the beautiful mission, vision, and values that we have posted around here. Culture lives in the heart of our people. Culture lives in the heart of you and how you express how you care for each other and our residents, each other, our neighbors, and our team members. That is ultimately our culture. Nothing else matters after that. Culture is about values, behaviors, or actions. And I'll use behaviors and actions, and I'll explain why in a moment, interchangeably. So culture benefits, stating the case a little bit. A lot of you were worked for companies where probably such a position didn't exist. 10, 15 years ago, the business community began to realize how critical this position is. But prior to that, it was given a little bit less of a presence. Matter of fact, culture of the businesses was, for a time, it was how they said it, what was the tone, and you kind of acquiesced to that. Over time, things have changed. Honestly, y'all have began to set into motion changes that allowed for the creation of a chief culture officer. So let me explain a little bit. Highly engaged employees result in 23% increase in profitability. This is what CEOs, corporations, businesses, nonprofits all began to realize why they invested in their culture, the big change. It is estimated the average cost of replacing a team member is 33% of annual pay. Inclusive companies are 120% more likely to hit financial goals. 72% between the ages of 18 and 34 said that they would consider turning down a job if they think the employer didn't support diversity, equity, and inclusive initiatives. On top of that is 80% of all workers say they want to work for a company that values and not just messages DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to know that it's inclusive by its actions, not just by its messages and words or posters around. Joyful employees take 66% less sick leave. Joyful workplaces have 51% less turnover, going back to that 33% of annual pay when you have to replace somebody. And joy at work leads to 125% less burnout. So let me give you some statistics that affect us, if that didn't affect us. And now you see the beginnings of why major smart companies know they need to invest in their culture. Senior living organizations in the top quarter for the culture enjoy 38% lower turnover than those with a poor culture. And in the broader corporate world, companies with strong cultures report 3 times the revenue growth over a period of 3 years than those with weak cultures. And the communities with the healthiest cultures reported an average occupancy of 94%, whereas the least healthy communities in terms of organizational culture reported an average of 66%, well below the national average of 87%. So you see, I hope the case is stated very, very clearly. It would be almost irresponsible to neglect the culture. But all of you who have worked outside of the home, hopefully you liked if you worked in the home, that you liked your home. But for those of you that worked outside of the home, you know what it is to have a culture that's toxic, how miserable it is, the health tolls it takes on you personally, and how you couldn't wait to get out and move on. That's a tough place to work. Nobody wants to do that. Today I'm going to show that there is even a less tolerance for that environment, just the smell of it, and folk will move on. Finally, that's the difference that culture makes. It's impacting turnover, it's impacting revenue, and it's impacting occupancy. Huge justification for that. So makes me really happy, not just because it allows me to express myself in another way, but long after I'm gone, the significance of this position will be here, and it will be seen, it will be felt. So the mission case, which we're all about our mission, vision, and values. Happy employees equal happy residents, bottom line. Inspirational and empathetic leadership transforms people. It transforms me. I had to say that because she's right there. It transforms me, it transforms you, and your leadership in return transforms other team members as well. A strong purpose to which all can connect is to thrive. And we're all about thriving. And working and living in a way that is fulfilling equals joy. And you saw the benefits of joy. And engaged residents and engaged teammates is to live brightly. And that's what we profess we want to be about here. So culture is not just a piece of the puzzle. Culture is not just about HR. Culture is about every single, and that's why it's tied directly to the CEO, because culture is the umbrella that is the entire company. So it's not just a piece of the puzzle, it's the entire puzzle. But something else eats both. So what Drucker was saying was a company's culture is so important that it can prevent a strategy from being fully realized. If the culture isn't there, you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if you don't have the people who believe in it and who will pull it off, it'll never ever be successful. You might taste a minute of success, but eventually it's going to turn into a toxic work environment and it's going to sink itself and implode. But what Drucker didn't get, and I believe he would have as he continued on, is what we get today. There's one more thing that eats both strategy and culture, and that's purpose. Because purpose eats culture and strategy for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner. And it's connecting to that sense of purpose. We know that in you. If you don't have a sense of purpose, your will to live is zip. And our workforce, if they don't have a sense of purpose in what they're doing, their likelihood of staying with us drops from a year to 6 months to 60 days to, in some cases, a week if they don't see it. So we are, I guess, by any sense of our belief in the value of humanity, we want everybody to have a sense of purpose here. So the culture goal is to create an inclusive, compassionate, and loving environment where team members and residents find a sense of belonging, meaning, and purpose in their experience and interactions at Beatitudes campus. That's what I work for every day. That's what I try to evaluate, and that's what the lens I try to look for. So who am I? What is a chief culture officer? And I guess I shouldn't say who am I, but what is a chief culture officer? A chief culture officer, or CCO, is a senior executive with a company primarily responsible for shaping and maintaining the organization's culture, ensuring that employees' behaviors, values, and practices align with the company's mission and goals, creating a positive and productive work environment that essentially acts as the guardian of the company culture. Now you'll notice residents aren't in there, and that's because not everybody deals with a beautiful community like we do. So we tweak that to make sure that it encompasses this beautiful community from residents to team members. So here's how I try to live it. I see the position as to inspire and drive and sustain the Beatitudes culture, which honestly comes from the top. And we're not a hierarchical structure in a sense, but we are, because everybody knows the CEO sets the tone for a company. So it's important for me to be aligned with my boss, as well as to inspire and drive the vision that's there for our culture. The CCO serves as Beatitudes campus's top culture strategist. The CCO is to ensure Beatitudes culture is well-defined, communicated, and becomes its competitive advantage. And that's the dream, that's the hope. Driving innovation, resident pride, and team member recruitment and retention. As we create that, my goal one day is to create a community where it's not only the best place to live, which I believe it is, but it's the best place to work as well because of y'all. The CCO creates value by enhancing team member performance, shaping internal and external perceptions of Beatitudes, and identifying innovative leadership and management practices. And the CCO is to identify gaps between Beatitudes' goals and its actual practices. So many times we see the stated goal, but we see the practices that are almost working against the goal. It becomes part of the institutional way of doing things, and sometimes they become outdated, outmoded, and sometimes just downright hurtful as we begin to look at those. And implement improvements that enhance both team members and resident engagement and satisfaction, which is so important to us. And the CCO is a change agent who will lead Beatitudes into the future by creating workplaces where team members understand how they're valued and contributes to the organization's overreaching mission and enjoying collaboration with one another. And I say that because that comes all the way back to purpose and helping our team members identify their purpose. And just one little side note, you all have the greatest impact in a team member believing they have purpose. When you are there to tell them they make a difference, when you are there to tell them that they are making our community a better community, when you are telling someone who is taking out the trash that you appreciate them, or someone even you don't know behind the scenes washing the dishes, they need to know that they are as important to the success of our community as anybody else, including us. Because they fail to do their job with pride, it impacts all of us. It doesn't matter what it is. So all jobs we consider to be equal here. So the responsibilities I feel that I have, that Michelle's given me, is responsible for shaping, teaching, and reinforcing the kind of culture that supports team members, residents, and promotes excellence, which is one of our core values. Ensures that evolving strategies and ideas and initiatives are in correspondence with our mission, vision, and values. Those mission, vision, and values for us are with the lens we look at and look through for almost all the major decisions we make here in this community. And we also hope you look through the lens as you look at each other and communicate with each other. Are you upbuilding? Are you assuming good intent? Are you doing those things that will strengthen and upbuild our community? Manages the mindsets and beliefs of the Beatitudes Care Force, and serves as a role model of company values and culture by demonstrating that support of the organization's culture. I fall short of that, don't I? And then finally, create a vision for the Beatitudes culture that will grow and strengthen throughout the years. And I hope you'll begin to see some of that in the next couple moments. So you might say, who reports to me? What kind of people are a part of this? It's always growing and changing, but today it includes Comfort Matters, which is that dementia care program. But as far as I'm concerned, it is that technique to reaching out to people of all abilities, and making sure they feel included or respected with dignity and care. So that's Comfort Matters. Spiritual Life, I get to be part of that, continued on in my ministry as well as community engagement, which is that life enrichment, fitness, and media and publications. All of those come together for culture. But I want to remind you that in a culture, every single department is a responsibility that I have, because the CEO's responsibility is to all of that as well. So seeing that any one department that doesn't carry through the culture and the mission and vision and values becomes the least common denominator and the greatest impact on us. It will have the most impact. And one of the things that's said out there is that the behavior of a company is the worst behavior that a leader will accept or tolerate. That becomes your standard. If you allow a poor behavior from a manager to exist, that becomes your standard for behavior. So it's up to us to hold each other accountable. So what kind of culture, just to give you an idea of what our workforce wants today, it's different when y'all came to work and you just learned what the company wanted of you and you did it. Today, this is what they want, and they will leave if they don't feel it's there. They want to understand their personal role, how they contribute, and how they contribute to the larger efforts, how their work contributes to the larger efforts. So they want to know what our purpose is, and they want to know that what they're doing fulfills that purpose and gives them purpose. They want to work for someone that supports them and their mental health. They want to know that their managers and directors care. No longer acceptable to say, do not bring your problems to work. That never worked anyway. Every single person brought their problems to work. They just pretended like they didn't, and it impacted everybody around them, always and everywhere. Work-life integration and flexibility around where they work and when they work. That's tough for us because we have folk that we need to count on to be there, and we have a certain amount of people in our licensed buildings that need to be there. But the reality is we got to figure it out, and we're working on that. But it's a tough nut to crack. It's a tough nut to crack because we want people to have flexibility. But I can't give everybody the day off on Thursday to be with their families. I can't. But that's what they want. But they know they got to be here. So we got to make it worth being here because they see their purpose. Culture, more than just commitment to DEIB. They want it in action. They want the environment to be both one where they feel like they belong, it celebrates diversity, it believes in equity, and it's inclusive. It's critical to this workforce. So for me, success looks like this. Residents and team members have a clear understanding of actions that lead to a thriving culture. Resident engagement is high, and we measure that through our Holleran survey, but we can also see it by your participation in what went from just about maybe 20 activities a week to hundreds of activities a week. Team members' engagement and satisfaction is high. We measure that through Holleran, but we do some pulse surveys throughout the year. Sustained diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging program is in place, and a successful new team member orientation and new resident orientation is re-implemented and ingrained in everything we do. So on that first one, I would like to ask if it's possible, y'all got them, I think, the Beatitudes and Actions and the Resident Affirmation. Resident team members have a clear understanding of the actions that lead to a thriving culture. Today's workforce, they want to know what's expected of them. And so they want to know how we expect them to act. And they want to be able to hold us accountable to those actions. So we've listed 20 behaviors, actions that we expect. So we just don't tell them that go out and treat each other and figure it out as you go. But we begin to set those standards. And I'll explain to you a little bit how we talk those through. Beatitudes and actions are, again, those 20 behaviors. We don't ask them to memorize them, but each week action is kind of looked at and reflected upon, and we do this through either an email or we send it out. For a while, I was sending it out to the residents because there was a request for that. I'm going to be very honest with you. I got some really negative feedback from a certain group of folk that started to kind of take off and go in a direction I didn't want it to go. For someone that was trying to create a culture of loving and acceptance, it really wasn't there. So I thought, okay, we're going to back that off. We'll just work with the team members and we can go there again one day. A personal thought or reflection then follows. So Michelle's done it, Cheryl's done it, I've done it, and now we're working with some of our frontline group to be able to share. It's really pretty cool as we kind of take on a TikTok form, if you know what that is. It goes out to every single team member, so we want everybody to be reflecting on that action of a week with those reflections. And every single meeting, scheduled meeting, begins with a 5-minute reflection or less. It can even be 2 minutes, just discussing it and brainstorming. And some of the things that I've witnessed with some of the team members has been absolutely mind-blowing as they begin to share. And it allows them to talk at depths about things that they've never talked about on the job anywhere else, anywhere. Like that first one you'll see there, free your compassionate love. How many companies did you work for, unless you worked in the spiritual community? But I'll tell you, even then, they didn't always talk about it. But how many of you were able to talk about love in the companies you worked for? Love. Why wouldn't we? We're a faith-based community. Why wouldn't we talk about love? And who in the world doesn't want to know they're loved? Who in the world? Nobody has ever existed who didn't need or want to be loved. So those are the things we begin to talk about. It's miraculous to watch these folk who you'd never think would be able to talk about love. You all created, meaning residents, and some of you are here, but they now represent you, the resident affirmation. It's a beautiful statement written by you residents on how you wanted to relate with one another. It says that you will embrace diversity in all forms, that you respect the needs of others and you show appreciation, that you value friendship, that you want to embrace and expand your ideas of to include those living, working, and volunteering here, that you value others' opinions and right to self-expression, that you believe in or value our community, that you embrace aging and strive to be your best selves, that you believe in having fun through lively and creative playing of games, and that you believe it is important to validate one another. I hope you'll take a look at that. That's how you dream you want to be in relationship to each other and to your team members as well who are here to serve you. It's a beautiful statement, I think. I keep it on my desk. I have a little plaque of it, and I hope you want to do that. You've got it on yours too. All right, I'm going to now speed this up because I don't want you to miss Cheryl's far more exciting presentation. So we want resident engagement to be high because we know it improves physical health, it reduces social isolation, it increases a sense of purpose, which gives everyone a reason to want to go out and make a difference in the world, better cognitive function, you know it all, higher quality of life. Frankly, I'm preaching to the choir because you're right here, you know what it is to be engaged and you know the benefits of it. And it actually potentially impacts longevity. But we also want our team members to have high engagement as well. And that's a little hard when you're task-oriented, especially coming out of COVID, when we basically had so much work for them to do, they could hardly stand up by the end of the day. But we want them to love it here. We want them to know that the world needs what they do here, that they are paid for it, and that they are great at it. We want to continue to make sure that's there. So the benefits of encouraging employees, 7 out of 10 employees would consider leaving their role for a more fulfilling one. That's why we have to put that extra effort in there, because they'll go if they don't feel fulfilled. That a third would consider staying even if the pay was lower, if they believe they're making a difference and they're connecting to the people they're serving. The best part is 96% of workers believe that they can be fulfilled at their work. We just need to make sure that we're helping them see that they have every right in the world to know that they are worthy and make a difference here. And the research implies that communities that boast the healthiest cultures will have the most success in retaining talented staff. And then that sustained diversity, equity, and inclusion. Remember those statistics? 72% between the ages of 18 and 34 said they'd turn down a job. And 80% of workers say they want to work for a company that values and not just messages DEI. I'm proud to say, forget those statistics for now. That's the business case why any company who isn't about this is way behind and I would say are going to fall off the map in the years to come. But it's in our faith. It's in our DNA. We're founded in a denomination that started this community because it saw an injustice happening to seniors in the 1960s. And it said that's unacceptable. We're going to create a community that gives dignity, respect, and empowers and believes in lifelong learning and knows that our value as human beings exists to the last breath and then beyond. So it's in our DNA. So forget how popular or unpopular it is. It's who we are and it's what we'd be about anyway. And then a successful new team member orientation and new resident orientation. I'm excited to say that we launched our first in-person new team member orientation last week, 2 weeks ago now. And it was an all-day event. We're still putting the finishing touches on it, but we want them to connect to that mission, vision, and values. I want them to see the incredible people that are here, and I want them to know that the door is open to them to a sense of purpose, that they feel our culture and that they believe in our culture and they want to be part of it, and they get to see the beautiful leaders and become one if they so choose as well. So my bottom line is for us, I cannot emphasize enough that ultimately we can do it all as far as trying as a leadership team to let our people know they are valued. But you are the ones that ultimately matter to every single person here. You're the ones that ultimately let them know they are valued because they're here to serve you. They're not here to serve us. They're here to serve you. So the things you say, the way you empower, the way you lift up, makes all the difference in the world. And so there's a trend in our society to heavily critique, to criticize, to go online and shoot down, to be honestly everything our parents taught us not to be, nasty, brutish, and short in the way we interact with each other. It's an unreal time. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen here at Beatitudes campus, because nothing tears down an individual more than knowing that they have failed to bring satisfaction to you. And even when they do fail, it still hurts. So we want to be constructive. We want to assume good intent. We want to lift up. And we're trying to teach our team members to do the same. I've had to work with Michelle on how she communicates with me. Saying that's not helping me, Michelle. Can't call me those names. But also to make sure that it goes round, and that we would never have a team member talk to you that way, and we hope residents would never talk to team members that way. But it's something we need to work on, because I'll tell you what, our society is taking a different approach, and we're not going to let that happen here. We are the model, I truly believe this, for the larger community, how to live in community, how to upbuild, how to love, and how to appreciate differences and diversity in each other. So. All right, thanks you guys. That was 22 minutes of my career. Yeah. Oh, no.
Hi, everyone. You're going to see or hear some crossover between what David said and some of what I have, so you'll know that he really wasn't making all that up. So HR, personnel, all different kinds of names it's been. It emerged in the 20th century. Back then, personnel clerks were the HR people, and they were hiring factory workers. Then they kind of moved to basic recruitment and selection, started doing background checks, things of that sort, and then started handling worker grievances, discharges, safety issues, and supervisory training. That kind of grew into the HR we've known for years and years and years. Well, now it's changing. We've got a changing workforce. We have a great need to be creative and individualize recruiting experiences for people. And for certain positions, we have to be selective in where we recruit, what sites, what colleges, what companies, DEI. We've got to make sure that we're incorporating protected classes in our recruiting efforts. Then, once you make your offer, negotiations tend to begin. It's not just okay, I'll take the job. They want to know, can I negotiate the salary? Can I have extra PTO time, paid time off? Can I have extra sick time? Can I work from home? So, that work-life balance comes into play. Now we're also focused on creating a positive and inclusive culture to attract and retain those team members. David talked about that quite a bit. And so again, all of you are a huge part of helping us with that. Strong focus on team member well-being and physical and mental health. That is a very big concern for team members anymore, making sure that they have an employer that supports them with their physical health and their mental well-being. And we have been working at that here at Beatitudes, and I feel like we are making good strides with that. One thing, so who works at Beatitudes? These are the generations by department. I apologize, it's small, but obviously we have a lot of departments. Pre-baby boomers, or I have silent generation up there. 1% of our workforce is the silent generation. Then we move to our baby boomers, which is 16.7% of our workforce. Generation X, that's me, that's Michelle. We are the largest section with 32.3%. The millennials, or Gen Y, if you've heard of them that way, they make up 22.8%. And then Gen Z, I don't know if you've heard a lot about Gen Z, but they are revolutionizing employment and companies. and they are a close second. They are at 27.2%. So they have surpassed the millennials in the workplace. So I'm going to get to that in 1 second when I talk to the generations, but I can tell you Gen Z they were born between 1995 and 2010. So let's look at some of our departments. Dining services. So the pink color is Gen Z. 65.9% of our dining department is Gen Z. So that's our younger workforce. Our pre-boomers, or our silent generation, again, that 1%, they're in Beatitudes at home. And then the rest of the departments are filled in with everybody else. And so it takes a lot to be able to attract and then retain people based on what's important to them. And David touched on that a little bit, but I'm going to move to another slide. What does each generation want? So the silent generation, they value, born 1928 to 1945. They value hard work, respect, and loyalty. They're motivated by having contributions recognized. They prefer structured and stable work environments. They're used to coming to work, having an office, physically being here. Our baby boomers, 1945 to 1964, they value hard work and a sense of duty. They are motivated by rewards versus personal recognition. They like bonuses and promotions. They prefer structure and clear goals. Gen X, 1965 to 1980, they value strong work ethics in their coworkers and their leadership. They value diversity and work-life balance and flexible work schedules and telecommuting, as well as independence. They're motivated by collaborative work environments and personal development opportunities. And then we have the millennials, or Gen Y, 1981 to 1994 birth years. They value work-life balance, a sense of belonging at work, and they're motivated by job security, flexible work schedules and environments, and career growth. Gen Z, our last generation that's currently working. The rest are too small, too young. 1995 to 2009, they value social responsibility, personal connections, flexible work schedules, and remote work. They're motivated by job security, mentorships, interpersonal relationships, and a focus on well-being. So, you can see a wide range of wants, desires, needs, and that's very difficult for a company to manage. And so, over time, we have adapted and are adapting to how do we do this. So again, we've talked about recruiting efforts. Having a culture officer is big for this, especially with our younger workforce that are so socially focused, and our workforce is very diverse as well. Our ethnicities are all over the place. One of our EEO categories that we do track is 2 or more races, and that tends to get bigger each year as cultures combine and families change. So HR is not really that compliance, policy focus anymore. Because we have such a diverse workforce, there's so many issues they have across the board. And we are there to assist them, provide them resources, and a lot of times just an ear or a shoulder. I always tell our team members, my job is to support you, so you then can go support our residents. And that means the world to me, to be able to allow them to unload, get help for any questions, problems, concerns they're dealing with, so they can come to you fully present. One less thing for them to be worrying about, knowing that they've got resources, a leadership team that's behind them to help them. That's what we're evolving into. Don't worry, we're still doing the compliance stuff. We're making sure that they have their fingerprint cards and background checks. We do all of that. That's just become normal, part of what we do, process. But we are no longer task-driven, transactional, so to speak. We are now more personal. And whether it's in person or via communication features like technology, Paylocity, you'll hear that. It's Michelle's favorite word. Actually, she'll say it's my favorite word because I say it all the time. But it's our payroll system and our human resource system. And so we push all of our communications out through that. So they, at a moment's notice, know what's going on here. We had some crazy message come across in Paylocity yesterday to all the employees, and I started getting blown up with texts and calls and emails going, what does this mean? What does this mean? We could easily just put a message out saying, we're not sure, and we're looking into it. And so Paylocity is looking into it. But, it was one of those, it was really kind of exciting to know that they actually paid attention, which sometimes we're like, do you not look at your phone? I see you on it all the time. But so we are there for them. And we want to ensure that they're aware of that. So we are pushing that out more and more. We have an employee appreciation planning committee that's made up of team members from other departments. So we can create events and initiatives that engage our team members and hopefully make them feel more a sense of purpose. David talked about that. Having a sense of purpose, that's huge for people and through all generations. And what better place than Beatitudes? I mean, we all want a sense of purpose. So I don't have many slides, and because a lot of what I wanted to talk about was just what it is we're doing. So I am done. Anybody questions? Okay.
This question's for Cheryl. When we first moved on campus, virtually everybody was an employee of the Beatitudes. Now with the outsourcing, you've got people whose work responsibility is here, but they're working for a different boss in some ways. How do you meld that so that you don't have competition? I'm working for Morris, I'm working for CoreWorks, you're working for the Beatitudes. To me, that would be a challenge, and I'm just interested in knowing how you're dealing with that.
So you're absolutely right. And I would say initially, when we had the change of our facilities team and our environmental services team going to CoreWorks, that was more of an issue or concern than it was with our recent dining change to Morrison. We tried so hard during the contract negotiations and whatnot to keep benefits the same, to not have our team members lose anything by going to another company to get a paycheck from. We have told them from the beginning, you still work at Beatitudes. You are still Beatitudes. Your paycheck comes from someone else, but you're a part of us. We tell them, you need to be on Paylocity as well, even though they have a different payroll system. That way, they're getting all of our communications. They are a part of us. They are hearing everything that any other Beatitudes payroll employee is getting. So they have, and we've even told them this, they have a greater personal development, professional development opportunity than Beatitudes employees typically do because of how large CoreWorks and Morrison is and all the different communities and facilities that they're in. But what we're finding is they love it here. Why? Because of all of you.
Yeah, and I want to say ultimately that question's about culture and the culture we develop here at Beatitudes Campus. And we've made it really clear that it's one team, one dream. And when we go through orientation, everybody's a part of that orientation. And as a matter of fact, we point out to them what their badges say. It doesn't say Morrison, it doesn't say CoreWorks, it says Beatitudes Campus. So they are recruited into Morrison or CoreWorks based on our mission, vision, and values. And if they don't stand up to our mission, vision, and values, just like anybody else, they won't be a right fit for us. So I would have to say that one team, one dream is what we're continuing to be successful about. And really, I don't think the bulk of the employees see the difference between CoreWorks and Beatitudes Campus anymore, for the most part. And by the way, their paycheck does come from CoreWorks, it does come from Morrison, but every penny that they get came from Beatitudes Campus. So, and they understand that, and we kind of pound that home.
And we work with their supervisors, the directors, to ensure that our culture is also being, I don't want to say followed, but that they are embracing it and that they are living it as well. So that permeates through to their employees, our employees as well.
And we would not have contracted with them if they didn't embrace our exact core values as well. So,
Joe's been here over 15 years, and so Joe knows our culture. Joe's living it with us, and so that was a much easier transition, was that Morrison team, because they've been here so long.
I have a totally different question. Most of the people who are working on campus are here during what we call typical business hours, but we're a 24-hour campus. So there are some who are here at what would be called off hours. How do you work to keep them part of the team? Because they could easily fall away because they're not supported by all the other people.
That communication goes out to all of them. And so that's one good reason that pushing communication out in the Paylocity system or via email is a good thing, because it reaches everybody. You don't necessarily have managers at night. And so you're not going to have that staff meeting per se. But with our nursing department, their shifts are 6 to 6:30, and that's morning and night. So there is a handoff, and there's report given and updates given. We have team members that work what we call PRN, and that's as needed. And I'm excited to say one of them showed up to our all-team rally last week? Last week. And that's kind of a really exciting thing for us. Someone who hasn't been able to pick up a shift for about a month still was engaged enough to come here and attend our all-team rally meeting. And she was a night shift employee. So they're getting the word, they're hearing it. We have work to do, that I know of. For years we have talked about, and we've done it a couple times, coming in during night shift, leadership, just to see them, have little chats with them, just to get their feelings, get how's it going? What can we do different? What can we do better? And we need to restart those, because absolutely, they need to feel a part of the community as well. And I think we do a pretty good job of keeping them in the loop and feeling a part of it, but it could always be better.
I was just wondering if there's anyone on staff that works from home remotely.
Currently, we do not have anyone that fully works from home. We did, and it was a specialized position within the healthcare center called the MDS nurse. And they essentially look at all the assessments, and then they are a big responsibility or have a huge responsibility of filling out the assessments that then get sent to Medicare. And then what we receive as a payment is based on those assessments. So they're able to take the nurse's notes and all of that. We did have one person doing that. She was a temporary employee until we hired someone. But now, for the most part, everyone's here, but people do have work from home days, but nobody full-time.
Come on, y'all had many more questions for the other classes. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to give any other questions? Okay. Hopefully that painted a picture of the important work of the culture piece of our initiative here at the campus. Do I have a slide? Nope, you're good. Thank you all for coming today. I was hoping you'd give David a little bit harder time, but that's okay. I'll do that when we get back to the office. So thank you guys for being here today. We appreciate you.